Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Friday, February 25, 2022. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has condemned the invasion of Ukraine and says every avenue is being pursued to ensure the safe return of Jamaican students in that country. While addressing a function Thursday evening, Mr. Holness asserted that Jamaica supports the multilateral cooperative system of nations in resolving international disputes.
Jamaica is consistent in its support for the universal respect and adherence to the principles of international law, the respect for the territorial integrity and sovereignty of all nations. We therefore cannot support, and in fact, we condemn the invasion of Ukraine.
The Prime Minister stressed that the unfolding event in Eastern Europe is of great concern for global peace and prosperity, as well as timely and sustained economic recovery. Speaking to the potential impact on Jamaica, he says this could be felt through global energy prices, with oil prices and possibly other commodities. Prime Minister Holness says Jamaica, as an independent nation, must be resilient and should look to dramatically improve its energy resilience and do much more to cut reliance on oil, given the abundance of sunshine and wind at the island's disposal. The Prime Minister also emphasized the importance of ensuring greater food security as food prices rise in connection with global shocks. Mr. Holness also provided an update on government's efforts to assist Jamaican students in Ukraine. The last update is that there are currently 27 students remaining in Ukraine, 25 of them in the city of Kharkiv and 1 in Kyiv. Another 15 students have left the country. He says government is using all its efforts, connections, and friendships to ensure the Jamaican students can be safely returned home if they choose.
In a time of war as this is for those students who are stuck in the Ukraine, the only effort of the government now must be to get them out.
Turning his attention to domestic matters, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced an expansion of the Get Every Illegal Gun campaign. Following a meeting of the National Security Council, it has been decided that the Jamaica Customs Agency, JCA, will be formally brought into the program. The Prime Minister says this will allow for an increased focus on ensuring that no illegal gun can penetrate Jamaica's ports by capturing every possible entry point. And in a warning to the internal collaborators and facilitators who are allowing illegal guns into the country, Mr. Holness says the state will be getting tough on these actors.
It is time that they face serious consequences for their actions. And I want them to know, without fear or favor, that we will be looking very seriously and very closely at the operations of those agencies and entities.
He also announced that the Firearm Licensing Authority, FLA, will be providing $25 million as the first provisioning of the Get Every Illegal Gun Fund. It was among several matters regarding the FLA that were discussed by the National Security Council on Thursday. The NSC's discussions also included the application and approval process for firearms, as well as the ineligibility criteria. The Council is reviewing the mainstreaming of the intelligence agencies in the approval process and the removal of residual discretion of ministers to approve firearm licenses. Other operational matters under review include the introduction of new technologies for the marking and tracing of firearms and ammunition, a new and more in-depth system of vetting persons at both the FLA and the Jamaica Customs Agency, and changing the requirement to serve on the board of the FLA to include a fit and proper criterion. Prime Minister Holness says there will be a fulsome report on the Security Council's final decisions in short order. In the meantime, he says, the Get Every Illegal Gun campaign has been going very well, with guns and gunmen being recovered almost daily. Jamaicans are urged to share what they know about illegal guns with the security forces at 119-311 or the JDF tip line at 876-837-8888. In other news, government says it will be pursuing the full extent of the law against those responsible for the illegal sand mining in Great Bay, St. Elizabeth, which has caused damage to sand dunes in the area. Minister with responsibility for water and environment, Senator Matthew Samuda, gave the update at Wednesday's post-cabinet press briefing. He says a stop order has been issued and the area will be rehabilitated.
There's a broader point, however, that we wish to bring across to citizens. We encourage you to bring to our attention matters of environmental concern. NEPA, the police, no enforcement agency will ever have the full footprint that we wish we would have in Jamaica. So we need you to be our eyes and ears. When matters of this nature are brought to our attention, we will take the strongest action possible within the law.
Minister Samuda says the matter of illegal sand mining has been a concern for some time, and work is being done to strengthen the law and to ensure that enforcement keeps pace.
Under the instructions of the Prime Minister, we will begin taking steps to look at the legal protection of this area and the sand dunes along the southern corridor. These sand dunes would have been formed some 5,000 years ago, and we believe they warrant the protection under the environmental laws of Jamaica. We will update further on that matter in due course.
Cabinet has given approval for several contracts valuing approximately $301 million. They include contracts for health and life insurance for employees of the National Health Fund. Contracts are also approved to implement a panic alarm system for the Garmix Free Zone, grounds maintenance services for Petrojam, and closed user group services to Cable and Wireless for the Ministry of Finance.
And the approval of a provision of preventative maintenance services of air traffic management systems for US $2 million to Thales Air Systems SAS.
The Minister with responsibility for information gave the update during this week's post-cabinet press briefing. And finally, Education Minister Favour Williams says government will be seeking to fund more early childhood institutions across the island in the short term. Minister Williams was addressing this week's launch of the Public Expenditure Review of Jamaica's education sector, pointing out that of the over 3,000 early childhood institutions, only about 10% are state-run or funded. She says government needs to have a bigger presence in the sector. Among the recommendations made in the report from the Public Expenditure Review of Jamaica's education sector were for the reallocation of more resources to early childhood education.
There are two initiatives underway. One is to transform, modernize, get more schools within the government's portfolio, more schools funded and run by government, to ensure that the existing practitioners in early childhood become trained so that they can perform at a higher level.
She adds that going forward, the Education Ministry will be ensuring that the Age 4 assessment is done in all early childhood institutions.
We did that in 2019. The pandemic years, it didn't happen during the pandemic years because you had to be in school to get it done. So that's something we're going to focus on to ensure that we get it done annually, because what that will tell us is exactly where on the learning scale that 4-year-old is.
Minister Williams also welcomed the review's recognition that Jamaica's education budget was far bigger than most countries in the region, based on its relationship to the gross domestic product, GDP. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.